Welcome to Lab Results. We are live. We have a great conversation tonight because we had a great session on Monday of our live Black Man Lab. And the topic was the importance of Black men in education. And the conversation was as rich as it could ever get. We had some great panelists on for us on Monday, one of which I have here tonight, and I'm going to give him an intro here in a minute. But before I do that, first and foremost, I want to just give a little bit of background about the Black Man Lab and what gets us here today. The Black Man Lab was started roughly over 4 years ago by four brothers, Molly Davis, and three other fathers. They really got together to be able to give their sons a different voice than their own. We know quite often as fathers that our sons in particular will tune us out. And while they might tune us out, they'll listen to an uncle, a godfather, a good close friend, a little bit more if they might say the exact same thing, but they'll listen to them more than they'll listen to us. So that was the impetus for it. That's where it started at. But then what we did is we brought in experts from either personal development or from professional development places and talked to the young brothers to give them a different voice as well as give them insight into other ways that they may have some interest in their professional world or just in their self-development. And that grew from that small group of people to prior to the pandemic, we had over 250 Black men meeting every week at the Andrew and Walter Young YMCA to discuss different topics every week. And it's back live again now. So we have our sessions on Monday going again. And then we also wanted to keep this space as well, this space of virtual, so that we could bring in people from around the country, around the world even, and likewise even bring in guests from around the country as well. So for just a little bit of different ability to touch different lives with the messages that we have. From the beginning, what we were is a great place for Black men, a place that is we call safe and sacred, where we can share and grow together. What we do every week is we make sure that we bring our ancestors into this space. And when we do that, we do a simple libation. We call on an ancestor's name, somebody that will be proud of the work that we've been doing, somebody that will be in this space with us if they were here still. So every week here at Lab Results, we just call on one name. This week, we're going to call on one particular name that of an ancestor who is now an ancestor, a man who is now an ancestor, a brother, a father, a great mentor to many, who just this week passed yesterday, actually, and really great man. So I'm going to bring my guest on with me to call on his name. And then we're going to get started into our conversation. If you would join me on the count of three, I know you know the brother well, and I don't have to say the name because I know that you're going to know it with me. So on three, if you could count the name, call the name with me. 1, 2, 3. Michael Langford. Ashe. A great man who is now an ancestor, and again, will be proud of this work that we're doing. Because it's the work that he did as well. So we call his name, and we know that he is resting well with the ancestors now. With that, I want to get started, and I want to bring on my brother, who has been a big part of the Black Man Lab. He's always readily available, always dropping nuggets, always being a voice of reason, a voice of the youth, and doing a great job in our communities. So with that, I want to bring on my brother, Mr. Awaken the Genius, Keene Walker. Bro, what's happening?
Hey, what's going on, big brother? Good to see you always, man. Had a great time on Monday night. The energy was through the roof. I mean, so much positivity and love, man. I think I would not have made it through yesterday, man, once I heard about Michael Langford without the positive energy and vibes that was flowing from Monday night.
Yeah. Isn't it funny, man, how that spirit will carry you, right? Because there's been plenty of weeks that I know myself and other brothers have had some challenging weeks. And all we got to do is look back to Monday, right?
Yeah.
And then not only do we look back to Monday, we look forward to the next Monday because we know we're going to be able to recharge, right? And get that. It's so hard to quantify what the spirit of the Black Man Lab is in that room. It's so hard when I tell people, hey, you just got to get there. You just got to get there. And every time somebody gets there, what do they say? I got to be here every week. I got to be here. So anyway, man, so our conversation on Monday was, about a world that you've been in for, I'll let you tell the story of how long in terms of education. But what I want to hear first before we get into that with you is your background. Tell me about, where you grew up at, how you grew up, and we'll get into that, and then what led you to where you are today.
All right, Marty, I love this, man. I love your delivery first and foremost. And I just want to springboard a little bit off of what's coming up, because we were talking about Monday's platform with Black men in education. And the last thing I remember Miley saying to me before we left is, bro, Walt, you have to be back next week, man, because we're talking about brotherhood. And with this happening to Mike, it's like, wow, it was almost like the ancestors were whispering in my ear, bro. There's a reason why you have to come back on next Monday, man. So maybe there was something being said or some vibration going through the universe that said, like, yeah, you're going to need this right here. So first and foremost, let me just say thank you again for having me on as a guest. Thank you for all of the work, man, that all of you guys are doing with Black Man Lab, because there's nothing like it in the country. I've traveled all over the country. I've seen a lot of good work being done. There's no slight to anybody else, but I think everybody needs to be in that space at least once before the year starts. So with that being said, I just want to pay homage to what you guys are doing. And start, man, I have a humble upbringing, man. I'm from Thomaston, Georgia, like 30286. When they say get it from the mud, we get it from the mud for real. Like, we red clay warriors, like for real, for real. You know what I'm saying? So if you're talking about that red Georgia clay, you're not wearing no fresh Air Force Ones in my hometown. And with those things, planning on wearing them again, because the red clay is going to find you. So, we grew up, I tell my students all the time, like, when you guys say, Walt, you don't know nothing about growing up in the hood of the projects. I'm like, bro, y'all got air conditioners in the projects now. Y'all got doorbells. Y'all, we had the fan that didn't work until like 2 o'clock in the morning or whatnot, and you only used it during the daytime. Like, we didn't have any doorbells. The only doorbell you had was peeking through the blind in the back window so you can see who's standing on the front porch. And then I always this morning, I said, bro, we had to have bathroom floor plan before it was in vogue. Like right now, people say we had like 3.5, baths or something like that. No, we had to have bath. Wasn't no bathtub, none of that stuff like that. And your bathroom was on the back porch. And in the wintertime, being from Chicago, I know y'all can relate. Wintertime, you had to put a coat on, brother, just to use the bathroom.
Wow.
And either in the morning time was that oven door being let down, and you shared that with your other 4 siblings. So that right there kind of just gives you a little bird's eye view into like that poverty mindset that a lot of us grew up in. And some of us just shaking it off in our 30s and 40s. You know what I mean? So the reason I go so hard, coming from Thomaston, me and my boys, we had a crew, man. We were the 40 house, bro. And we were like brotherhood, and we still are best friends to this day. But sometimes when I look back at it, I have a mixed bag of emotions. Like, number one, I thank God for the brotherhood. I thank God for the unity and community that we still have in what we have all contributed to our hometown and what we will continue to contribute, not just to our hometown, but the world. But then I also think about some of the things that we did, man, that I would not even want my son or nephews, none of the young brothers I work with now to even know about. You know what I mean? Like just being out there doing some speak stuff that I would be embarrassed if my mom knew we were doing it while we lived on her roof.
Exactly, man. It's funny because, you know, Maoli and I, we grew up on, you know, South Side of Chicago, area called Jeffrey Manor, which, you know, has its reputation. Let's just say that. And, you know, we did a lot, a whole lot, you know, but people don't know that about you today. You know what I mean? They see where we are today, and they just think that this was silver spoon the whole while, you know, but the reality of it is that we had to work through some things. So to your point, I don't really want people to know, you know, I'm with you. My children don't necessarily know my background in terms of the stuff that I had to do or didn't even have to do, you know, I just did. And so I completely get that, man. But I think that also builds a certain level of character with you as well. You know, when you come out on the other side of doing, even if you were doing some bonehead things, let's just say, you know, you wind up coming out of that and look back and you say, man, this is God's blessing that I'm still here. You know, it changes your mindset of how you do the work. I just had a conversation, me and Maoli, with a young man the other day who's been doing some not so smart things, let's just say. And the first thing I told him was, man, you playing with house money. You done all the dumb crap you've done to this point, and you haven't been locked up and or killed. You're playing with house money. You have an ability right now to switch it all around and change your life for the better, so that you don't wind up in one of those two places, you know, the grave or incarcerated. And we, you know, I don't know if we got through to them, but we're gonna keep trying. You know, that's what we have to do. So, and that's the work you've been doing. So let's get back to that. I don't want to waste any time on talking about what the Mr. Awaken the Genius is doing in terms of the work out there. You know, so now I know you grew up where you grew up at, and what got you to transition towards where you are today. So, you know, I know you went away to school, and how'd that happen?
Man, great question, Marty. I love the way you're setting this all up chronologically. I went off to Alabama State University, the Alabama State University in Montgomery, Alabama, man, home of the Hornets. And I actually went to school, ironically enough, Marty, I don't know if I ever shared this with you. I was a political science major, man. I went to school, I aspired to be an attorney. And yeah, man, just ironically enough, you know, not listening to adults, man, from my hometown who cared about me and who knew a little bit more about college than I did, because my mom wasn't a college graduate. So, you know, I didn't have the luxury of having, you know, like my mom and my uncles and everybody sitting around talking to me about FAFSA and all that stuff like that. No, man, we had to figure it out on our own through trial. And I think that's a bad omen for a lot of our youth who are first generation and so on and so forth. But I went out to Alabama State, man. I got down there, and first year they blessed me, man, with financial assistance and whatnot. Second year, man, I looked at that balance, and it was like, bro, if you can't pay this, you'll be headed back to the crib. And I'm like, I know if I go back to the crib, I know the lifestyle I'm going to jump right back into. You know what I mean? And that's why I say to people, man, you know, when you live on the other side of the track, you said, Marty, when we come through it and we're on the other side, man, don't forget about those cats who were in that position you were in just a few years ago. So I get there, Marty, and I'm literally, bro, thinking about transferring. I don't know where I'm transferring to. I just know I need to go back to Georgia because the out-of-state tuition was killing me. So I just I was going to go down to West Georgia, man, to visit my high school quarterback and some friends who were at West Georgia. Shouts out to Cedric Risper, my high school quarterback, who's head football coach at Westside Macon now. Went down, visited those guys, man. I saw a lot of other guys from Georgia who played football with me. You know, just like the energy was positive. I'm like, see, I don't have this in Alabama. They all know each other, but they don't know me. So they don't know about me as an athlete. They just know about me as the new kid on the block from Georgia. So I then got, you know, paperwork, went to the financial aid, and Marty, this one, I was playing with housing money, but, you know, my first year, now, Marty, I'm full-fledged gambling. I go into my financial aid office, I tell them I'm about to withdraw. They see my GPA, so they know they really don't want to afford to lose, can't afford really to lose a quality black male student. And I just started gambling, man, with brochures and stuff. And the guy tells me that he had one scholarship he could give me. Wasn't a full ride, but hey, he gave me one. Then I'm leaving there, brother, no exaggeration, walking up the stairs to the post office, getting ready to head back to my dorm. And Bernard Mitchell, who is assistant superintendent in Montgomery right now, as well as my frat brother. He wasn't my frat brother at the time. He told me about a scholarship. Well, no, I told him what was going on. He said, why don't you apply for this scholarship, man, in education? I said, bro, I came to school to be a lawyer. I didn't come to be no teacher, you know what I mean? He like, it's not like they follow you at the graduation and see if you go into that career or something like that. Right. Hey, man, that was like an epiphany for me. And I'm like, wow, I never thought about it like that. I said, what can I lose? So I went and applied for the scholarship, Marty. Got the scholarship. Start enrolling in my educational classes or whatnot. And thanks to Dr. Ellen Stewart, by the way. Once I got an education, man, this way everything turned. I started taking those classes and I said, I think I can do more to impact Black and brown boys and girls on this side of the law than I could on that side being an attorney. And that's when the journey began right there, Martin.
Isn't it funny, man, how and the reason I like doing this in this format in terms of getting people's background and what got them to, lab results, right? It's in the title. What got them to the results of where they're at is that there's always these epiphany type moments that I think the creator reaches in, touches you and chip that, now this is where you're supposed to go. Right?
Yeah.
And then when that happens though, it's really, it just becomes a succinct thing where it just continues to snowball into where you're supposed to be. And I think so often in life, it's one of the things that we, especially us as Black men, I think we fight so often because we're fighting so often, whether it's oppression, whether it's our own communities, you name it, we're fighting so often. When it comes to stuff like that, we fight against what's being shown to us. Right. Yes. And you were fortunate in this case that you said, hey, okay, it don't make a difference after, they don't know what I do when I graduate. So
that's right.
I'm gonna take this, but it actually wound up being where you were supposed to be.
That's right.
That's beauty, the beauty of it, man. So what was next? So you got through school, and then when you got out, what happened?
Oh man! Well, first, before I got out of school, they gave me an internship, man, at Houston Hill Middle School, right up the street from Bama State. Some of the toughest projects in Montgomery at the time.
Mm-hmm.
They're beautifying them now. Say, look, you wouldn't think those were. We used to call them two-lane things. You know what I'm saying? It's the two-lane flame, whatever. So everybody knew when you went to the club that they called the Top Flight of Montgomery. Anybody who's ever went to Bama State knew about the Top Flight or the Rose, where they eventually became known. Doe B was shot and killed at the club. The rapper O.T.I. was getting ready to bring out, man, and take big. But those projects were right across the street from that club, and on the other side across the street was the middle school I interned at. And man, when I tell you they gave me everything I needed to understand about working in the inner city within those few months as an intern. So that shifted me when I graduated from college. I was really prepared to go and work at the Carver High School in Montgomery, man, West Side, West Fairview. And I tell you, everything that I needed to learn about games, everything I needed to learn about poverty, everything I needed to learn about young Black and giftedness, like on both ends of the spectrum. I think, once again, when you said the great ancestors as well as the Most High reached in and said, bro, this is why Dr. Vivian DeShields put you at that intern instead of giving you one of those plush schools that some of your friends. And, so that gave me a turn, man. And I still, Marty, every year go to this thing they call July Fest at Carver High School, because those students, man, they still have, I wouldn't say reverence, but, man, they hold me in such high esteem that just recently at a football game, I was in town for homecoming, and one of the students from class of 2002 had his Carver 2002 football jersey on. He literally took it off his back. He said, I know 2003 always have your favorite cigars. They always have this when you come down with July. But we want to show from the class of 2002. And I need you to get the irony of that. We're in 2021, and the love, man, there's no gap in between that graduating class and me. And I taught those kids, man, like probably 1998 or something like that.
Wow. And that's the beauty of being able to touch lives, man, and I had a conversation earlier today. One of my former players, I used to coach high school basketball in Chicago. My former players I hadn't talked to in I don't know how long, was talking about, he was thinking about retiring from coaching. And, he said, I was thinking about retiring from coaching. I've been doing it for a long time, which is funny because he's obviously much younger than me. But he posted that he got 3 or 4 letters from his former players, some of his former players that were just thanking him, and he's like, I can't. He said, I can't quit now, because he touched some lives, and he knows, he's like, I know my work is purposeful, right? Yeah. And that's why we do this work. I tell everybody, man, we think about material things all the time. When you're younger, it's always, I want to get that car, I want those Jordans or whatever, like you were talking about. People say all these material things. That stuff comes and goes, man. But what you're talking about right there will stay with you forever, and it'll stay with those kids forever. So obviously, so that's the beauty of it, man. Now, how'd you get back here in ATL doing education?
Oh boy, that was a tough one right there, Marty. Family was like, hey, bro, you just gonna bounce and leave and go to Atlanta? All my relatives were back in Georgia. But people think, like, people who know me now, because I went to Alabama State, they think I'm from Alabama. I'm like, no, man, I never even went to the state of Alabama until I left going to college or whatnot. As a matter of fact, I never left the state of Georgia until I left going to college. So we weren't just traveling like kids do today. The only time I ever crossed the state line before then, we were in Columbus, Georgia one weekend. This is Poverty Man on steroids right here. And we were so cross my mom. We like, hey, that's Phoenix City, Alabama, right across that bridge right there. Can we at least just ride across the bridge so we go back to the field? We can tell everybody we went to Alabama and whatnot. That was it, Martin. That was the extent of our travel, man. So I'm in Alabama, and I'm like, man, I want to get back to Georgia. All my siblings are there. My mom is there. All my friends are there. And I just knew Atlanta was going to present some opportunities for me that I was not going to get being in Montgomery. No, not to Montgomery. I just knew where I wanted to go with my life. Didn't know exactly how I was going to get there. But, so I'm reading the book, Who Moved My Cheese? That was a catalyst, man, at the time. I'm reading Who Moved My Cheese? Him and Hall, Sniff and Scurry, all that stuff. I'm like, hey, bro, this is it right now, man. So we leave, we come to Atlanta. I go and work at North Clayton for a minute, leave there, go and help my homeboy's father down in Macon to start a TRIO program. I know you're probably familiar with TRIO, because he said, I need a solid educator to come and help us get this off the ground because it's going to be a heavy lift. We were the only 2 real employees, so we got to go to the school, calm the kids down, speak to the kids, pass out flyers and whatnot. But that kind of gave me a whole new, I guess, view of how education go, because that was a part I didn't get. I didn't have anybody coming into the school talking to me about financial aid and SAT and all this stuff. That gave me another, tool to put in my tool belt. So I came back to Atlanta after that because the drive was getting me. I was literally commuting down to Macon from Atlanta.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
For like 2 years or whatnot. So I come back, get a job at Tri-Cities. And that's how most people know me, man. I'm over there going hard in the paint for our kids, man, doing what I know we need to do, teaching the standards, but also teaching beyond the standards, making sure our kids knew about, the Marcus Garveys, and they knew about the Imhoteps, and they knew about, Fannie and Lou Hamer and all this stuff. And, hey, that was a little too much, I guess. In a black city with a black principal, my principal said, I was teaching, I wasn't teaching the standards. And she asked me, Marty, she said, those red, black, and green bands, I hope you're not bringing all that black stuff here. That's a black lady, Mimi Davis at Tri-Cities High School, said that to me. And boy, you know what, man? We out here, man. I'm at a hearing, bro. I need you to get this. I'm at a hearing for loving on black kids, educating them beyond the standards, and now my livelihood is in jeopardy. I'm at a hearing, 400 of my kids march out of the building, man. They have this protest. Rest in peace. I just found this out last night. Brother Bozeman was sick in the bed. He saw the protest on the news. He said, man, we got to do something. He calls Baba Mike Langford, now that he's our ancestor. He says Langford brings him out there. I didn't know this the last night, Marty, when I talked to Bozeman.
Mm-hmm.
He said, Bozeman, we got to help these children, man. These children right here, they own to something, man. We got to help them out. And that actually launched me into meeting Molly Davis, who came out to represent those kids pro bono. And that was kind of like, and from my vantage point, the catalyst of Let Us Make Man being formed and a lot of other relationships like the one I have with you and so many other people. So once again, that was the Most High saying, bro, you have to be the sacrificial lamb right here.
Yeah,
you're going to lose it all. And hey, man, I read some stuff in the, I read some stuff on social media, some sites that I never even heard of. A woman from California, Marty, I know this kind of, I go off track just a little bit. But
that's okay. Bring it in. It's all good.
California, bro. She calls me, man, and she asked me if I ever heard of this white supremacist, I think like virtual paper called Stormfront. And I'm like, Stormfront? Why? Man, first of all, who are you? How my contact information? And she said, man, keeps popping up in all of these white supremacist sites or whatnot. And that's when my brother and my cousin said, bro, I told you they've been had an envelope on you, man. Dude, when you start doing what you're doing, you don't know it, but we know it. We've been seeing this or whatnot. So that happened, man. And then I ended up, Marty, going to do some work down in Bermuda with gangs and whatnot with a brother from New Jersey, DeLacy Davis, and a whole gang of people from Newark. And at that point, I didn't think I ever wanted to come back to education. I'm going to be honest with you, man, because I got a chance to see the value that I added to the community, the value that I added now to the international community. And then, I came back to APS, man, and gave it one shot. I said, I'm going to apply at one school. I didn't even go through going through no board of education and all that. I called the school, man. I won't tell the whole story. But because nobody would believe this. They'd be like, hold on. They might even try to retract everything.
Man, don't get yourself in trouble now.
Yeah, I'm just saying I didn't go through people used to always say it's hard to get into Atlanta public school. But me, I wasn't really trying to get into it. I'm just gonna call the school, man, and see what happens and whatnot. And next thing you know, man, the energy was flowing. Got an interview to speak with a principal or whatnot. So I went through the proper steps and protocol. But that was it. I just called one school. More I had never even heard of the school before. I looked it up, man. I called that school. Got started, and I've been in Atlanta public school now, I think, for the last 15 years or so. Might be long.
It's so interesting, man. First of all, it's so much that you just dropped right there in terms of things that we can unpack. But first and foremost, man, isn't it amazing that you went through that initial kind of conflict and the principal of the school, the black woman.
Black woman.
That just tells you how we can sometimes see within our culture where people buy into somebody else's thought processes and somebody else's ideologies. And even when you're just doing it's harmless work, right? You're doing the work that you're supposed to be doing, that the book says you're supposed to be doing, but I'm adding this piece of it too, which is just giving more information. That's all you're doing is you're giving, and it ain't false information. It'd be different if you were, selling a particular religion or something like that. You just giving factual information, historical data that, they're not going to see in those books that they normally have, but that becomes a problem because it's not what somebody else's ideology says it should be. And then we wind up buying into it. And that's just so unfortunate. And that's also why we have to have spaces like the Black Man Lab, man. And I say like the Black Man Lab because there's other people out there doing similar work, man. But it's just so unfortunate that we have to deal with that, but the fact that you're able to come through that in the ways you did, making those connections with Bozeman and Bro Langford and of course Mowley, that came through there, that's all part of the creator's plan, man.
That's right. And check this out though. I want to show you something real quickly. Just to show you the power of what was going on with, man. This organization, I started this organization right here, Brothers Building Up Brothers at Tri-Cities High School. So this is the kind of work I was doing. So like now people see it. It's out there. I've had it at several schools. I have young brothers who are in the school system now. Dorian, one of my brothers who was a president, he got Brothers Building Up Brothers tatted on his arm with the African logo you just saw right there. And you heard me say the other week, Brother Kip has I'm a link in this chain, tatted on his chest. So the work that we're doing, it didn't just start here. So I told somebody I'm a 25-year overnight success. You know what I mean? So, brother, it looks good now, man, but y'all don't know from whence I come. So when we say we get it from the mud in the country, it's like, bro, if you shoot at somebody in Chicago, it's on the news in 5 minutes. You kill somebody in my hometown, it might not even make the newspaper in 5 days. You know what I mean?
Right.
When we get it from the mud, we really come from the mud. We're not doing this for no attention because we don't get that kind of attention. So the vice versa, now that I'm doing what I'm doing here, I fight just as hard to ensure that our kids are going to get a quality education, which I got, but they totally did not give us anything about the doggone Marcus Garvey's, and they did not tell us anything about the Denmark Vesey's or the doggone Sojourner Truth. Yeah, you heard about that, the Big Five or the Big Three or whatnot, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and doggone, I don't even know.
Malcolm X.
I don't even think we had Malcolm X in my high school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Talking about that. My high school was probably like 60% or 70% white and 30 to 40% black, even though my neighborhood was 100% black, if that makes sense right there. Sure. So I was about Malcolm X and Garvey and Washington and all those as a result of just some brothers in college, not necessarily always the professors who were just studying outside of class. And that's why you always hear me say now, there's a difference between schooling and education. Those brothers were getting educated outside the class, just like I was trying to educate the scholars I had at Tri-Cities outside of the curriculum, because the curriculum was going to do exactly what you alluded to a second ago, keep them within certain parameters, and they would never know Malcolm other than he's the bad guy and Martin is a good guy, which really was as far from the truth as anybody could ever doggone be.
Absolutely, man. And I was thinking about Monday, our conversation on Monday around this, and it was interesting to me to watch the panel have some similar experiences but different, in terms of education. But I always, when I'm up front there and we're, moderating, I'm always watching the audience, right? And I always want to see what the topics do to the audience. And there were some things that were said on that panel, I want you to get into it, that I could see that the audience was like, that you get that effect, right? Where you could see something hit somebody. Talk about that a little bit. When you were on the panel, what resonated with you as you talked with the audience, or you listened to, what the other folks on the panel were saying?
Well, I thought we just had a great panel, man. It was so diverse all across the board. You had a young man who was a 5-year educator. You had brothers who were 20-plus educators. You had a doctor sitting right next to me, and you had Brother Grant, who is a college professor. And it's like, brothers who came from, Mississippi, now he's a PhD, but giving back to the community. So what I took from that, man, what just made me feel so proud of all of us on the panel, as well as all of the young brothers who were asking questions, is that the energy stayed positive. Even if the question was one that could almost steer you into that abandon the black boys kind of, language, it just kind of came back to the center and like, no, I hear what you're saying. However, where we're going to shift that to is this is what the young men need. So when the brother, one of my favorite brothers, man, Brother Bobby, who was sitting down with his king in the audience and whatnot, I think that was just like the highlight of the moment, the highlight of the year for me when that brother said, brother, we don't take any money from the government. We don't we're not a charter school. We are African centered. And I don't know if he said unapologetic, but that's what I felt in my spirit. Yeah. Like Will Smith on Pursuit of Happiness when he just started clapping like this. And the brother said, man, we teaching warrior training to the young ladies and the young brothers and whatnot. And making sure that kings and queens, they have mantras. So you see, I almost know the whole way he said, man. And I think that was the, to me, the culminating moment where I just said, God, we're on to something now. I know it's just a little drop here and there in the bucket, but we're starting to put those dots together. And you acronym, connect the dots, ask the right questions, relate to them, and expect more from them than they expect from themselves. And then the level of questioning, those young brothers, they were just bold, man. They were asking like solid questions, like, what do we have to do to get them to teach about sex education and taxes and and then I'm just like, come on, man. Like, hey, this is where the real work starts, Martin. I'm going to bring it to a conclusion right here. But the real work starts when we encourage our kids. That's what that A in ask the right question and care means. We got to encourage them to ask us the tough question. Make us go back and start doing more research. Let us be the catalyst that say, hey, I don't have the answer for that, but let's come in here after school. Here's that schooling versus education. Come in after school tomorrow, man. We might not be able to get to that during the instructional time. Right. But education happens during the instructional time. It happens outside of instruction. It happens a lot of time outside of what they call the school building. So I would just say, man, there was so many moments, man, from both the panelists as well as the audience. Just seeing those young brothers, man, having a liberated space where they are encouraged to ask questions. To me, that was like probably the second most promising thing in the space, Martin. You guys do such a good job with your moderating and, you know, like facilitating. I think you make it a safe space for everybody. And, you know, it's an inviting space. And I love that it's Black men in there. Because the day I see that other people start coming in there, you know, like every other thing we've ever established in the community, the first time I see, you know, like, and I'm saying, I know, you know, hey, everybody want to integrate certain things. When this space gets integrated, that's when I'll be exiting stage left, because that's the one thing that always is what we have going on. Because other thoughts and ideologies start to come in and people start making you question, well, why that brother had to say they just African centered and whatnot. Yeah. And I want community that I just respect so much now, not because I agree with necessarily what they do, but I agree with connected they are in their community, and they're going to make the moves together, whether it's for the good or the bad, they're all in. And I think we have to just keep these communities like this safe, like you said at the beginning, and sacred, and make sure that we continue to allow the young brothers to ask questions and allow the panelists to give those answers that might not be welcoming in the broader community right now.
Right. And you're absolutely right. The whole idea and the whole feel of what the Black Man Lab is allowing that safe and sacred space to be there so that we can have these, you know, intimate conversations. In some cases, you know, you've been there and you've seen, you know, you've been a panelist and you've been in the audience. So you've seen what that's like. You know that feel allows for a level of honesty, right? Yeah. I've had folks come up to me afterwards and say, well, y'all should do this. Y'all should. I had a brother come up to me, this is a long time ago, come up to me and it's like, you know, you guys need to and there's nothing, you know, no offense to this, but he said, you guys need to, you know, make sure that you're having prayer before every session and, you know, make sure that we're, you know, honoring Christ, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm a Christian, but you know, we want to make that space for everybody. You know what I'm saying? And so I had to explain that to him. I said, I understand what you're saying, brother, but this is a place, you know, there might be somebody in here who's a Muslim. There might be somebody who, you know, practices Ifa. There's somebody who practices whatever, you know. So if we start to focus in on one particular thing, then we might throw somebody off, right? And we want everybody in the room. We want everybody in the room because there's some commonality that we all have, right? Yeah. We know that there's some commonality that we as Black men all have, you know, no matter what our backgrounds are, no matter what our religious beliefs are. So to your point, we have to keep that, right? We have to keep that space safe and sacred and not allow it to be co-opted in any kind of way, you know, and that can happen from a variety of ways, whether that's other people, whether that's other genders, whether that's whatever. We want to make sure that that space is safe and sacred so that we can have these conversations that we have to be honest with ourselves around what's going to change the paradigm of us in our community, which in turn changes the paradigm of the world, right? you touched on a little bit there where you were like, we're right there with all these things, we're right there. Now imagine when these dots start to connect.
Yes.
Imagine when the dots start to connect, because the mountain of oppression is infinite almost, and if we're all just out here just taking a little grapefruit spoon at it, that mountain ain't going nowhere. Now, if we start connecting the dots, in our communities, we can chop that mountain down,
And I think what you do, Marty, oftentimes our own sons, they hear us, and I think is that it's not that they're not listening to us, but like we often say in the lodge, you got different types of hearing or listening without me going into all the specifics. But I would just say this right here. That's where those uncles, man, those barbers in the communities, and even sometimes, man, I tell people, even that brother at the liquor store, man, on the corner who's dropping gems, and you don't know this cat might have been an all-A student, but alcohol won, or drugs won. That, and that's why I say I love the setup of the show tonight, where you chronological stuff. Hey, let me take you back, bro, Walt, because people see what you're doing here. So let's go back. If we saw the brother on the corner or whatnot, he was somebody, he is somebody's father. Hey, look, what about that brother who's smoking, man? Hey, that brother ain't no Jay. That brother is somebody's daddy. You know what I mean? So when we say connect the dots, man, that's mental health, all these different things, man. We need all the come back and start chipping away at that mountain. So I think that when we say that we got these dots almost together, Marty, I see it, man. I'm even watching brothers, man, who I hang with, who have seen me like stop drinking, man. On my son's birthday, January the 5th, it will be 3 years, man. You know what I mean? And I chose my son's birthday because I said it has to be something that I can look forward to, something that's bigger than me, something that can connect me to not only those young brothers I've been working with, but bring me back to my own son, because, he needs to hear my stories, not as graphic as I might be with my students in the classroom who grew up in a different type situation oftentimes. But, my son needs to know a whole lot more about me and get to know all his uncles like yourself and all the other brothers out here who are integral in his growth.
That's awesome. How's he doing, by the way?
Man, he's a junior at Clayton State, man. He just shot a film recently. Just got invited to work on a project that, have a non-disclosure on, but the young lady wants him to edit the film for him. So I'm trying to push him out there, Marty, out of his, his comfort zone, because he's more introverted than I am, of course. Yeah. But he turned into a young man who he sees now. I told him, I said, bro, no matter how great you are, nobody's going to find you on campus. You got to get out here and, get into Black Man Labs and get into Let Us Make Mans and get in these spaces, man, where brothers see you working indirectly. It doesn't have to be the work that you're trying to do. And they're going to connect the dots and plug you with the people because they see that you work. And that's why we do this on Mondays and throughout the year, in every circle.
Yeah, make sure you get them back in the lab, man. I know you've had them in there before. We get them back in there because, man, the dots continue to get connected in there. We continue to connect people. You need somebody who needs a job, or somebody just needs information. You know what I mean? We're just connecting the dots, man. Here, talk to him. I can't do it. That's what he does. Here, talk to him. And it's a beautiful thing to see. And I think that the bigger part of that, though, is when we connect those dots, we get these young brothers connected with, somebody that can do whatever they can for them, whether it's get a job, just give them information, put a little, as my grandma used to say, just put a little fat on their head, whatever. Yeah. Those young folks are incited to do that themselves. I've seen that too. I've seen where the young folks that are in our programs now, when somebody comes to them, they're excited. They're excited to be in that role of being, a future Baba, if you will, right? Where they be able to give some information. And that's really what we want. At the end of the day, we want our young folks getting the information that might have taken us, like you and I, a long time to get to. We had to work through life to figure some stuff out, right?
That's right.
And, maybe, hopefully, what's happening is we're cutting down that learning curve for them, where they're going to get it at an earlier age and be able to build their own Black Man Labs, be able to, be true mentors for multitudes of people That's what we want to see, man. So, okay. You know, when I talk to you, I get fired up, man. I ain't gonna lie.
I'm fired up. You see, I'm listening. I'm fired up.
I talk to you, I get off. You get, man. You know, there's certain people that can, you know, you have conversations where they're making their motivation gets you motivated, right? You know, so I think that's something that you know, Molly and I have done for one another for you know, a whole lot of years. I hate to age ourselves, but a whole lot of years, right? We've been in each other's ear. You know, you can do it. You know, for a long time. So I love talking to another brother like yourself that does that for me, man. So let's get back to this education conversation. Okay. What do you think is the means? Because like our young folks, right, here's part of our challenge. The challenge with, you know, the education system as it's set up right now, because I think that if you come through the current education system, you're not incented to want to become a teacher, right? Because there's nothing in our systems that say, hey, young black boy, hey, young black girl, you know, you should have a career in education. What would you say is a means for us to change the paradigm of that thought? You're doing your work, which I'm sure is touching somebody's life, to tell them, you know, hey, I want to be in education. The young man I talked to earlier today, who I coach, you know, he said that one of the things that motivated him was, you know, some of the things that he learned from me and some of his other coaches that he had, when it made him want to be a coach. You know, he knew he wasn't going to be a professional basketball player, but he knew he wanted to stay in coaching. He knew he could touch lives. What do you think is the means for us to do that, brother?
First and foremost, I think we have to go back to a place, man, where we hold teachers in high esteem, because, you know, it's not always about money. When I became a teacher, man, in the late 90s, you know, because I was a teacher in the late 90s, now I'm an educator. But in the late 90s, when I became a teacher, man, I just remember I could go to communities and whatnot, and I felt like royalty when I walked through the community. Like, hey, that's Mr. Walker right there. And parents are stopping you. Mr. Walker, come on in here, grab you something to eat up. Mr. Walker, you want, hey, look, stop by here. I put it in some aluminum foil and bag it up. That's the late 90s. And now, you know, hell, you might have a parent that come up to the school like, bro, where you at? You know, like, bro, my dad's gonna come up here and see about you. Like, bro, let's be real clear. You know, your dad don't know my dad. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's what educators are up against right now. Like, brother, I love what you did, Marty, as a coach. But now as a coach, man, there's so many landmines out there that I might step on when I'm doing the same thing you did as a coach. But the rules are shaped differently. So, you know, a young man can come in the room, or a young woman, and we're not talking about black before anybody starts shifting to the black on black stuff. I don't care what the race or nationality is. Kids do not respect educators because society is not respecting educators. So when they say it takes a village to raise a child, if the village is sick, we all know, Molly talked about this the other night, where the thinkers, the educators in the village, they would sit and think, and people would bring them water, they would bring them juices, they would bring them fruit, because they knew they were pouring into the community, and the community poured back into them to replenish. So first and foremost, I would say let's hold educators to a higher standard than some damn standardized tests. Because we know about those educators like myself and other colleagues I've had over the years who have paid to keep people's lights on, who have put groceries in so many refrigerators, who have actually taught, you know, students who were on the ledge of dropping out of college, or, you know, going in the wrong direction, to come back to the center, man, and reset. So I think starting with that, and of course, man, educators in this environment, I think should, if you've been doing this for 20 years, there's no way you should be making less than $100,000, man. That's just point blank. Pay us for what our value is, and I think our value is a whole lot more than that. And don't do it based on just, you know, like quantitative data of tests, because if you have the luck of the draw and get the right kids in your class, it doesn't matter what you do in that room, they're going to excel on a test. But are they going to excel when it comes to their character? Are they going to excel when it comes to their stick-to-itiveness? Are they going to excel when it comes to community building? So I think we got to do those two things first and foremost. But this is the thing, Molly. I mean, I'm not Molly. Marty, I think it's going to break. And this one from one of our good white brothers, man, who I met, brother named Ken Bain, man. He's a Georgia native. Met him in New York. But check out this title of this book, Marty. It's called Super Courses, The Future of Teaching and Learning. You know I'm going to bring you a good book, Marty. You know I'm going to have something.
Every time, brother. You're a walking library.
Hey, man, and that's why I say people don't know the value of a lot of us in this community, man, you know, called education. That's why I hate when people say, y'all teachers. No, bro, I'm an educator. So, like, right now what I'm doing, Marty, I'm just trying to condense and streamline my messaging and whatnot so that when you ask me that question in the next probably 2 or 3 months, because I know I'll be on some platform with you again, I'll be able to give you an answer that's so much more succinct. But as of right now, using a 1980s model education, a 1980s model pay scale, a 1980s, you know, like model everything with 21 kids who have the luxury of being able to talk to you any kind of way. Not me, of course, but talk to other people in the building. You're losing a job. But you got to think, with me, after Tri-Cities, I have no fear of any of that kind of stuff like that because I know how to hustle. I know how to get out here, man, and earn my value, which I feel like on most days I lose coming to the school system anyway.
Well, I think, though, man, I think that there's, and I didn't even mention this before, I just thought about it. Both my parents were educators. My dad taught in the same school, in the same gym for 39 years. So now he taught kids' great-grandparents. Can you imagine that? It's on the west side it's west side of Chicago. But one of the things that I know, and I'm seeing it in you too, is the differences that were made on his end. I'm sure this is the same way with you, is that level of connecting community to the education piece, right?
That's right.
Because there's some teachers that just go through, you know, as you said, I guess the standardized testing type teachers, right, who are teachers. They're not educators. You know, they're not giving you stuff outside of what the curriculum says. You know, they're dealing with what's happening in that school building and not dealing with what's happening outside the school building, not looking at what got this kid to thinking the way that he does, right? So that they can better educate them, right? And I think that knowing that now, knowing that like with you and then with my father, I know that those kids had the potential to go into that same space because of how they were taught, right?
Your father,
or educated.
I never met your father, but without me knowing him, brother, I can feel his spirit coming through the screen right now. And I'm saying shouts out to your father for the work, as well as your mother, for the work that they've done, because I guarantee you, if you talk to either one of them, or if you could just go back and read their manuscript, their diaries or whatever it is, they will tell you what I said the other night. You know, it's kind of like this right here, man. There's a mantra that a lot of people use, like children don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Hence, that's why our company is Dare to Care LLC. Because I started out, I knew my objective, man, was, hey, I can't win them over with money, but I know it doesn't cost anything to care. That's how I came up with this whole concept, why you always hear me use that acronym CARE. You know what I mean? So it was like people like your father and myself and your mom and that long lineage of educators that I stand on the shoulders of. The one thing that we are real proud of is that communal connection. And once you take that communal connection from us, we are seeing kids committing suicide who are 4.0 students and 3.8 students going to Ivy League schools or whatnot because nobody ever helped them to think inwardly and to become aware of themselves. So now they're on these campuses where they're like a speck of, you know, or you know what I mean, man. They're a speck of old white sheet of paper. And man, there's where the real war is being fought. That's why we need educators out there on those university campuses. We need educators on the HBCU campuses, in the private schools, the public schools, charter schools, you know, like the schools my brother talked about that are unapologetically black, the African-centered schools. But Marty, I'm just so excited, man, that you invited me on, because right now you got my mind so streamlined right now, thinking about all of the educators who poured into me when I didn't even know that college was an option. The brother who poured into me, he was like your dad, probably spent 30 plus years in education. And the way he got me to go to college, he said, Negro, you're going to end up in jail or hell. He gave me options A and B. And I said, what about college? I added a C to the options. I said, what about college? Long enough to see it. That's how I ended up in college. It wasn't like no counselor sat me down. When somebody says jail or hell, as your only, you would create a C and see your way to it, man. So that's that. vision, believe the vision, achieve it. So I put that seed and conceive on there, and I believe in our achievement. So I just want to say, Marty, thank you again for having us.
Oh man, you know, it's so much love here, brother. You know that. And it's funny, you know, as we're having this conversation, is like you said, stuff starts going in your head. You know, Molly, myself, our other best friend, Carrie Mills, and then our other best buddy, Larry Stewart. The four of us grew up in Jeffrey Manor, which we again, it's a different kind of lifestyle, right? In the South Side of Chicago. And never would say anything bad about it because I love my Jeffrey Manor community. But the four of us, all of our parents were educators. I'm just thinking about that right now, you know.
Wow.
So it's really interesting that piece resonates with us. You know, that I'm not teaching, but there's a part of me that clearly wants to do that from coaching, and because my dad coached as well. Miley the same way. You know how he is. He loves to get in front of a room and teach. Carrie, my boy Carrie, and my boy Stu, all the same thing, man. But that's the piece I think that, you know, we want to see, that we are able to touch lives like you're touching lives, and give education, not teach, give education to people. You know, hopefully that you know, mantle will be handed down, and there'll be the next generation of folks doing it and really do it even better. You know,
that's right. Because they're out there. They're there. There are so many young people in my room. Like right now, Marty, is ironic, and I'll say this in 30 seconds right quick. We're doing micro teaching assignments in my class where I'm allowing my students to teach. And these kids are not educators yet. That's why I say I'm allowing them to teach. But this one young lady, man, she's teaching in my class about Charlemagne and the plague and whatnot. She's already come in my room and showed me how she's going to have the room set up, how she's going to give certain kids these sheets, and they're going to have the plague and not know it. And she's only going to give 2 people the cure to it. But she's going to open the lesson up talking about COVID and how COVID is similar. And man, when I tell you, so that's the next generation of educators, but nobody cares about that. They're only concerned about us giving these benchmarks and giving these multiple choice, you know, questions at the beginning of the class and whatnot. So that's where a lot of times our spirit as educators, man, the flame starts to be put out a little bit. But when that young lady came to me and she's staying at the school, she's like, I want to make sure I'm going to go out to the Dollar Tree, buy some giveaways and whatnot. I just see that's what educators do, baby. That's walking the wall all bottled up in the mind of a 9th or 10th grader, right?
Love that, man. I absolutely love that, man. And that's, you know, that's the thing that give you life.
That's right. Like, because that's the first assignment I've done this year, Martin. When you asked me about what is the fate or what is the future of education as far as like our kids going into it, that was it. When that young lady did that, Martin, it lit my flame. I had just been in compliance mode, man. And I've never been in compliance mode kind of person, but it's like, that's all that matters, man, in this new age, you know, and I'm just saying it like it is, man. That's all that matters. As long as you stay in compliance, and damn sure if you get those test scores, you might be teacher of the year 5-6 years straight. But if you're out there, you know, you talking about this communal stuff and going beyond the school and touching that kid who mama is still doing drugs and she's helping to take care of 5 kids, that's why she's missing days and whatnot. That's not an excuse absence right there. But we know, growing up in the communities we grew up in,
sure.
Tell your mama, man, come up here. I don't care if she geeked up or what, man. I meet on campus. We didn't sit down and have a talk because that's what I did when I was a new teacher in this game right here. Now as an educator, I pull up at the house, man, you know what I'm saying, and talk to mom like, babe, this girl got to get her education so she can save these babies. She can't be at home every day. Imagine Marty trying to do virtual when you got to put 4 little, you know, brothers and sisters on the virtual. So that means you're not hearing anything I'm talking about. No. But on the record, if we look at quantitative data again, this kid just doesn't show up for class. But when we start peeling back the qualitative layers like I usually do, on top of that quantitative, thanks to Gary White, Dr. Gary White, for giving me the opportunity to take that descriptive and inferential statistics class. But now I see beyond the smoke screens and see that, hey, that baby wasn't missing because she don't care about her education. That baby was missing because she's a grown woman in a 9th grade body taking care of 4 little ones while she's trying to actually survive this upstream tide to get online with a hotspot that doesn't work half the time.
Right. And now you asking a 8th grader, 9th grader to balance all that, right?
That's right. And we can't even do it as grown men
We
sometimes.
can't do right. Exactly. Hey, I know in my house we were homeschooling, and my girl's son, and fortunately he's back in school now because his teachers work so good. We had to still work, right?
It's not as if from the outside, man. A lot of parents have told me, parents will just be real with it. They're like, hey, thank God, those kids are back. Because, man, from the outside looking in, everybody think all you do is stand in front of a room and just talk. No, bro, there are a lot of lessons that are prepared that go way beyond the 3 o'clock a.m., hours, not 3:30 p.m. like people think. No, 3:30 p.m. a lot of times. I'm thinking about my student Marty, man, who just told me that his grandmother didn't make it. Like one of my students, man, we call him Honey Smack. Shouts out to Honey Smack. His grandmother, man, he told me on a Wednesday that she was in ICU. He came in on Thursday, told me she didn't make it. He texted me on Friday morning, asked me if I wanted breakfast, man. He cooked breakfast for me Friday morning and brought it to school. So think about that, bro. I literally had tears running down my face and say, here he is in his darkest hour, and he cooked me.
God bless that child, man. God bless that child. Brother, we are up against the clock.
Yes, sir.
And I want to, before you check out here, we do, our habits, rituals, and disciplines. We want to know what they are, what you do on a daily basis that keeps you walking the walk, right? So what is it that makes you walk that Keene Walker walk, brother? Your habits, rituals, and disciplines every day.
Well, I tell you, hey, man, my biggest habit, Marty, man, when I wake up, I work out with these books right here, man. This is my workout, and I also work out, man. You see I'm slimming down and back into my college size jeans or whatnot, man. So I'm working out both mentally and physically. Then I start organizing, Marty. I'm going to get real into organization. And then last, once I do those things right there, I write. So I'm working on 2 books right now, man. I wanted to have them out by Black Friday, but the Most High told me, like, no, don't try to rush it just to get it out there for sale. Make sure you're pouring everything you need to pour into it. So once again, man, I just say when you look at those things chronologically, I wake up and I work out. It's called WOW. You remember I told you this once before. I call it WOW. I work out, I organize, and I write. That's a daily, habit, ritual, all those things, man, combined in one. Because I know how you all my time. We write at that 7:30 mark, and I want to make sure.
Hey, brother. I was for you, man. I was willing to go 5 minutes longer, man. I don't care, but I appreciate it, man. And for those of y'all out there that watch this later or be watching now, remember that. Wow, man, that's a great habit, ritual, and discipline to have. Wake up and get your reading on, and then what's our O? Organize. Work out, and organize, and write. I like that. I started getting my workout back on, man, recently, because I am not in my college jeans. Nowhere near my college jeans.
That's right.
But I got to get there.
We need to just encourage each other.
Yeah, absolutely. But man, hey man, when I hear it, it encourages me. So, I say if my brother can do it, I got to get at it with him. So I'm with you, bro. Man, well, look, let's end like we always end, man. And I can't thank you enough, bro. Thank you for coming on. It's nothing but love all the time. Love you, man. And just repeat after me. I love you too. All right, bro. I'm a link in this chain.
I'm a link in this chain.
And it won't break here.
And it won't break here.
I'm a link in this chain.
I'm a link in this chain.
And it won't break here.
And it won't break here.
We are links in this chain.
We are links in this chain.
And we won't break here.
And we won't break here.
No way. Ashe. Appreciate you, bro. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Yes, sir, man. Love you, bro.
Okay. Love you, bro.
Every time we speak, I feel this melody telling me my black dreams are safe.